And we're live.
Good afternoon, Mr. Monkey.
Hello.
My nurse tells me that you have some anger management issues.
I really do. Really do.
So tell me, why do you want to sleep with your mother?
Because I can't.
Yes, we have that problem, don't we? So why don't you tell me what it is that angers you at present? Why are you so irritated?
Well, my doctor gave me medicine that she assured me would put me to sleep, but it doesn't work.
Have you tried a noose?
I have not, because I've heard bad things about those.
Do you often want to put yourself to sleep?
Very much so. Ever since I can remember.
Have you consulted anyone professional? Oh, wait, that's me. Okay, I can't keep this up.
Hey, guys, we're just fucking around here. It's me
Yeah.
and Scribe, as usual. I got bored, and he's nice enough to always entertain me.
Yes, that's what I do.
Oh, seriously, dude, these pills. Doctor told me once I went up to the highest dose, when I'd take 3 pills at a time, I would absolutely pass out, which worked for the first fucking day.
And you already built up a tolerance?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Since then, more often than not, it wakes me right up.
So, is it the pain that keeps you awake?
That's part of it, but it's almost like a switch gets turned on in my brain where I was tired and suddenly now I'm like eyes wide open. To the person who said I should try mixing alcohol, I'm also taking a high dose of Tylenol, and that would just turn my liver to liquid shit. Not doing that. I want to sleep, not forever.
So it really takes something that strong to get you to conk out?
Yeah, even that doesn't work though. Right now, one of my most awesome symptoms is this electrical pulse that goes from my shoulders all the way into my head.
Oh.
Yeah, can't sleep like that.
No.
But enough of that fucking shit. I don't want to bitch about my health here.
Okay.
Did you see the Michael Rowland's video about online harassment?
I have not. No, you'll have to give me a breakdown.
Oh, it's so beautiful. It's Michael and Christy and Tim, and I can't remember if there were other people, but
people who have no idea what it's like to be online harassers.
Right, absolutely. They actually read some of the hateful comments they get. Yeah, some dumb American did a video on it. That's where I saw it. Have you ever watched Go Fem Yourself?
No, I haven't heard of this either. I'm so oblivious to all this stuff. Everything happens so fast lately.
That's okay. She's an up and comer in Christie's circle.
See, I generally I've stayed away from those personalities because you guys have those covered, basically. So I generally don't watch their videos. I've seen people's videos on their videos, but yeah, I don't go out of my way to try to find their stuff to watch raw anyway.
Go Fem Yourself is kind of hard to respond to because she goes on like 90-minute rants about shit where she literally contradicts herself every 2 seconds.
Okay.
And it's really hard to respond to her. But she did one that it was like a joke video about how to respond to online harassment. And then Mikey has his more realistic one.
Okay. And
they have like a suicide warning in there if you know,
for fuck's sake.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all about if the internet is, if online harassment is just getting too much for you, seek help. Here's what you do if online harassment is too much for you. Turn off the fucking internet.
Yep.
Problem solved.
Yeah, I had a conversation with somebody that they were like, "Oh, I hope I'm not bothering you," and I'm like, "It's all text. If you're bothering me, I'll just look away."
Right.
It's like, yeah.
I'll pretend I'm not even here.
Yeah, I don't see now. Maybe it's just my, I don't know, online pedigree, because I was doing IRC stuff back in like 96, 97, right?
Oh, you're old school.
Oh, yeah. IRC, MIRC, and of course ICQ and all that stuff. And
ICQ, fuck, I haven't heard those letters together in a long time. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, wow. It's fine. Yeah. I mean, I had let's say I was using AOL Messenger, ICQ, and IRC. IRC I was using for originally for a online Star Wars fan club. They had their meetings on IRC, and that was funny. But there's also like role play rooms and things on there.
Oh yeah.
And I had, it was at that time where, chat rooms were the thing. And you had that, I mean, that was like, you had your own little world there before MMOs, before anything else, you could interact with other people. And I had a phase where I was in a sort of, I don't know, it was like, you talk to somebody anonymously, you don't have an identity, you can pretty much be whatever you are. I
Mhm.
got involved in a whole bunch of like online drama in this chat room I was a member of or whatever. And it really burnt me out because at the time there was no experience like that for people like me, or anybody really, because the internet was so new. And so the end result of all that drama and all that, emotional upheaval that resulted from it was I built up a callus to the whole thing. It's like I don't take online people seriously as much as real people. And that's not to say that I don't think they are real people or they don't have feelings or something, but there's this psychological buffer I've created between someone I only know through text, let's say,
Mhm.
and a real person. So I don't, except in very rare cases of like long term stuff or something, I don't get so emotionally attached to things people say online. I don't get emotionally attached to personalities I might perceive online. And short of someone outright threatening my life or something, I don't take much of what's online seriously at all. I just don't. I don't know how to take it seriously short of, an actual like detailed death threat they're coming to my house kind of thing. So I don't get the whole. I suppose if you've only grown up in a world where the internet exists and texting is a main form of communication, like speaking to someone face to face, I guess I could see how you might take that more seriously than an old fogey like me. But at the same time, it's just look away. It's words on a screen, seriously.
When I used to go to Bill Maher's Real Time with Bill Maher message board, and
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, you can't read it anymore because they changed the message boards they use.
Oh.
But at the time, I was the only conservative on that site.
Ooh.
And actually, I got along really well with most people. We had great arguments where we just went at each other sometimes, but it was all still very friendly, except for this one guy. One fucking idiot just got way too pissed off about it and actually threatened my children.
Oh, Jesus.
And yeah, I had no problem with it because he didn't know who the fuck I was and
Right.
he was just being an asshole. But the rest of them jumped his shit like he had actually hit one of my children.
Mm.
I was like, guy, he's just an asshole. Ignore him. Let him
Yeah.
go. That's pretty much my response to assholes in general. I grew up very much being the big kid, and mom was very much not going to raise a bully. She was nothing worried her more than me becoming a bully, which would have been very easy for me because I like to fight and I was the biggest kid. But because I wasn't allowed to hit anybody first, oftentimes I had to put up with a whole lot of shit before we finally got to a fighting situation.
Mm-hmm.
Being the bigger kid, little kids always wanted to fight, and I don't know why. Um, Maybe some weird Napoleon complex, but I built up a tolerance to it, where I can just fucking ignore it if I have to. And online, it's even easier because you can literally just shut it the fuck off.
I was the opposite. I was the small, uh, studious, quiet kid, and I got picked on a lot as a kid because I was polite and I wasn't as outgoing. I had glasses. I was really kind of slight, um, and I got teased, picked on, name called, bullied by, at least in my experience, the best, as it were. And on the flip side of things, that just built up my tolerance for what actually gets to me. And at this stage of the game, the only people that really end up harming me by things they say are people that I care about or whose opinions I care about,
Yep.
or maybe, I mean, depending on the circumstances, like an authority figure at work or something like that. But otherwise, it's like everything in proportion. Like, how serious is this? Does this really matter? Um, if I can look back and recall a time where things were worse, and this kind of goes generally for everything. If I can recall a time where things were worse than they are in the moment that I'm having with whatever or whoever it is, it's not bad. It doesn't feel like a problem or a threat. And you just have to, and that's one of the things that I really just boggles my mind about some of the people that I see um, outspoken now on quote unquote the left or whatever, is this, you know, completely paper thin skin, or perhaps just portrayed thin skin for the sake of attention. And I look at these like grown adults, like 20 somethings, 30 somethings that are complaining about bad words on the internet, or somebody made a Nazi joke or something. And I just think to myself, and this is always the phrase that comes to mind, how did you survive high school? Or you must have lived a charmed life in high school where you never had to deal with a bully, you were never picked on by bigger kids or people in another clique or something else like that. How did you move through life to this point without ever having run into difficulty with another person's attitude towards you?
Well, at this point, it's gotten to where bullying is such a taboo in school that you're not allowed to say anything bad. The worst trouble my children ever got into was my youngest son. What grade was he in? Maybe second grade. They had, maybe it was even younger than that, because the whole class went to the bathroom at the same time. And he was in there with this one kid who didn't wash his hands, and the kid is walking out. And my son turned to him and said, "Wash your hands, you dirty faggot."
Oh, Jesus.
And he got in so much trouble for that. And the teacher called me up and wanted to have a talk about it. And I'm like, yeah, I'll tell him not to do it, but you're making this out to be bigger than it is.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, no, this is the worst thing that he could have done. I'm like, it really isn't. I can name things that I did at his age that were way worse.
Yeah.
I threw a rock at my brother when he was climbing a fence and knocked him off. I guarantee you the kid who got called a faggot prefers being called a faggot to that.
Yeah, the bar has been so lowered. I remember it was the start of the school sensitivity policing. If I'm, and you know, correct me if you know of otherwise. It was after Columbine, and anybody with a trench coat was suddenly suspect. There was a story, I remember, this is a long time ago now, and I believe it was after Columbine, that there was like a fourth grader or something, like a ridiculously young child in some school that picked up a chicken nugget that was vaguely gun shaped, pointed it at another kid, went bang bang, and this kid got suspended or expelled. I forget what it was, but something ridiculous.
Well, we had do you remember the Pop-Tart? Kid got in trouble for eating a Pop-Tart, and he supposedly shaped it like a gun.
Yeah. As soon as you said that, I was like, oh, this sounds familiar. Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, anything that even like whiffed of an abstract threat in the most ridiculous terms suddenly became as serious as some kid coming to school with a gun in his backpack. It just, I didn't understand. It's like this, they talked about a zero tolerance policy. I'm like, a zero tolerance policy for what? Bad jokes, kids being kids. What are you doing? I try to think back to when I was a kid and all the shit that, yeah, like you said, like all the shit I got away with, or I should say, in relation to what things are now, I would have been in detention at best and expelled at worst for a couple of things I did. And I was the good kid, for fuck's sake.
Right.
I was the quiet, studious, like I say, I was the shy kid. There were kids, holy crap, I think about the bullies in my school. Those guys would be in jail at this point at the age of like 12 or something with the standards they've set by now.
Well, my wife actually got mad at me with my children because the school supposedly has a zero tolerance hitting policy. And my children would come home and tell us that they got hit, and we would call the school and nothing would get done. And then they had the fucking nerve to call me over my son calling someone a faggot.
All right.
I fucking lost my mind with that lady.
I think that you have to allow a certain level of bullshit to occur between kids. This is how you learn. I mean, when I got into, I remember it was, I had been like third grade or something. I got into a fight with somebody, and they picked on me and everything else. And it was the first time I'd ever gotten into a fight where I hit back and I actually hurt the kid. Right.
Oh.
Now, short of that it was the first time that I recall that I ever intentionally hurt another person, even though I was in the situation kind of defending myself. I had really hurt this kid. I think I chipped his tooth or something. And from that experience, I was like, I I don't want to be a violent person. I mean, it was sort of very nebulous when I was a little kid. My brain wasn't quite that mature at that point. But without that experience, I wouldn't have learned. And you got to have kids fuck up. You got to be able to take the bumpers off the bowling alley once in a while and let a kid make a mistake. That's how you learn. Not to the point where they're actually like doing something egregious, like calling it a bomb threat or something stupid like that. But I'm just talking about regular, everyday social interaction. I mean, short of being a problem kid that's always beating up people or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
well,
yeah, go ahead.
It got to the point where I would search out bullies because they were so easy to manipulate into a fight, and I do like to fight.
Mm-hmm.
And if I get mad enough to hit you, not to scare my audience here, but I get a thrill out of hearing you scream, which is why I don't fight. I actually wanted to box when I was younger, and my wife put a nix on that because she'd never actually seen me fight and was worried I'd get hurt. But I love to fight, and it's really a good thing that mom, directed me away from that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got to let kids be kids to a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
You can't coddle them like we are. It's turning out people who have to have a video made about how to not be offended online. For fuck's sake, turn it off.
Yeah, I just I can't. It's hard for me to picture what someone who is growing up in this state of things now is going to look like as a quote unquote adult 10 years from now. If you haven't gained the skills of just basic, I don't know, ego self-preservation on the basis of I'm okay with me and other people's opinions aren't going to hurt me, sticks and stones, etc. I don't know what a person that doesn't have those things looks like. And I'm not talking about like people who, I mean, I've known adults who are so fragile and have been so spoiled over their lives that they just don't know how to cope with things. But there's something just weirdly different about this, where it's like it's not that your parent coddled you. It's that essentially society at all is setting up mechanisms to help coddle you at the same time that you might be coddled by your parents as well. But now it's an acceptable thing outside of your house. And I, I don't know. I'm curious to what happens when. And I thought about this during the election because when Bernie Sanders got yelled off his own platform by those Black Lives Matter guys, I thought to myself, if I were a really cynical Republican, I mean, on the basis that Bernie Sanders won, let's say Bernie Sanders became president of the United States. If I was a really cynical Republican strategist, every time that I needed to debate a bill or try to make some kind of overture to the White House, I would just send a black person.
Yeah,
because if I saw him back down, if I saw that weakness, then I know how to exploit it immediately. And so on that same token, if there's someone like Ranting Monkey who comes across an entire swath of people who just have no defense against a bad word or a sidewise look or anything else, imagine one of those guys getting to be a politician. Imagine those guys being in a position of power and then coming up against somebody who doesn't give a shit. It's just I
think we're also seeing it in children need to learn to deal with that stuff, because if they don't, when they become adults, you get stuff like burning shit down because things didn't go your way.
Right. Tantrums are a solution.
Yeah, they have no coping mechanism at all for any kind of disagreement. It's so fucking retarded.
Well, and I also think about just not even disagreement, but just high stress situations. If you don't know how to deal with stress, if you don't know how to deal with difficulty, what's the go-to solution? Oh, I got to find a safe space. I got to curl up into a ball and listen to nice music and play with clay. Like I said, it is difficult for me to envision what a grown adult under those circumstances looks like in the real world.
I think that's what we're seeing with. We like to think that people are different online than they are in real life, but especially with like Christie's crew, I think they're exactly who they seem like.
I think. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'd say Tim is a sniveling little weasel. Christy is just a condescending cunt. They are exactly who they seem like. So to me, I think we're already seeing it. I think we're seeing what happens when this kind of child rearing takes hold.
Well, I think as the internet and interaction online and everything else becomes essentially ubiquitous, the line between my persona in real life and my persona online is, if not, it's already fuzzed away, it's almost gone. Like when I was a kid and the internet was a thing, the sense of anonymity, the sense of freedom from my regular self in this sort of faceless space where you couldn't. I mean, on IRC, I mean, unless you were a complete hacker, you couldn't track somebody down. You couldn't tell. You didn't have Facebook. You couldn't like look up their phone number or do an image search on Google to try to figure out who they were. You were completely free.
Right, right.
And since that freedom has very quickly eroded away to nothing, where your privacy is nothing, there's very few venues left, if any, really, where you can be completely separate of your real life and sort of be unfiltered. So yeah, people today, and not even people who are somehow younger than us. I mean, people who are our contemporaries, let's say, have adopted this in a lot of ways, where it's like, well, I am who I am both here and elsewhere. And yeah, once you start combining your real life emotions and your real life ego or lack thereof with the text based version of yourself and others, then yeah, words are violence, I guess. But it's just so insane to me because God, thank God I have the perspective of a world before the internet.
Yeah, I have a problem with the whole words of violence thing because it makes no sense to me. I grew up on sticks and stones. That was drummed into my head since I can remember. And the idea that words can be violent in themselves, like misgendering is violent. Go fuck
Mm-hmm.
yourself. No, it's
Yeah.
not. It is not.
No. I mean, when I think of words as violence, the only time it ever makes any sense to me is if it's coming from someone whose opinion I care about. If my father is dressing me down, then I feel bad,
Yeah.
or if he's mad at me unjustly or otherwise, it has an effect. If some random person is driving by and yells out the side window at me as I'm walking up the street, "Hey, faggot!" It's like, okay, and I just keep walking. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's 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 not the words to me; it's the messenger and how much value I put on the person saying them. Some random guy on the internet, unless I go to great lengths to like invest some kind of meaning to this person or some kind of weight to their words, it doesn't mean anything. I like I said, I just don't. My brain is unable to stretch itself to imagine a scenario where that makes any sense to me whatsoever. But obviously, it means something to some people, or like I said, they are portraying it as something that means something in order to get attention, in order to get sympathy.
I don't believe for a moment that they actually get their feelings that hurt. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Especially the guys. No, don't believe it. I can see the women getting, a little offended by it.
You
Sorry, ladies,
sexist.
you are a little more emotional than us.
You
You are a little more tender.
prick.
Yeah, I probably just triggered somebody. Somebody's going to need to go watch that video now. But my way, I told you the other day, my way of dealing with haters online, I tell them to make sure they buy a T-shirt.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, thanks for stopping by. There's cups on the way out. Exit through the gift shop.
Exactly. Don't forget to buy something for your family too. The idea that words hurt that much. Now, I'm not saying I'm never hurt by words. My wife has accidentally just destroyed me before.
Exactly. This is what I'm talking about. It's like it depends on where it's coming from. If it's someone you care about, if someone whose opinion it is, if someone you love says that you've done something awful, you feel bad.
Yeah.
Because that it's an extension of the trust and the care you have over that person. And that makes sense to me. I mean, I've had my heart broken by people saying things to me because I loved them, or
Right.
whatever. I mean, this words and the and who it's coming from can have a emotional slash traumatic, even physical effect on someone. True, but within proportion. That's really what it is. And if you stretch that amount of sensitivity to the entire world or portray yourself as being such, it's difficult for me not to think of that as some kind of mental illness.
For the record, somebody in chat wanted you to send them a dick pic a while ago.
I don't have a lens large enough.
Fucking technology just can't keep up.
I know, right?
Somebody else asked if they should start a YouTube channel. If you're interested, I would say go ahead and do it. Don't worry if you're like other people. Your voice is going to be unique unless you're actually doing an imitation. Go for it. Knock yourself out.
Yeah, I mean, give it a try. Your first couple videos are going to suck ass. That's just the way it is. I mean, in comparison to where you will get after your 10th video.
Right. Yeah.
Everybody should try this. I mean, the only reason I started doing this is because Irate Bear was like, I said, when did you start making videos? He's like, oh, a couple months ago. And I was like, okay. And I listened to him for 10 minutes and I thought to myself, oh shit, if this idiot can do it, I can do it.
Nice.
Love you, Bear. But anyway, but yeah, if you have any, whatever your opinion is on whatever, say it. I mean, and I've said this before, it doesn't matter if you're right. It doesn't matter if you're fully versed on whatever you're talking about. Say it, but be open to being responded to. Be open to criticism. Be open to the possibility that you might be wrong. As long as you enter the quote unquote conversation, I hate that word is becoming like some kind of, it's like problematic. I hear that word now and it makes me cringe. But anyway, as long as you're open to feedback and you're open to changing your mind if someone provides you with a more reasonable perspective, go for it. Because what we need is more people having these discussions, promoting their opinions, and having this dialogue back and forth. This is how we try to combat this insanity of these little bubbles and echo chambers that produce sensitivity things and trigger warnings and all this bullshit.
Somebody asked what our favorite guns are. I'm not a huge gun person. My favorite one I ever shot, it was a 30-06. Just because I had good aim with that and I suck with a handgun.
Well, my smart-ass answer is the BFG. My more real world answer. So first off, I don't like guns either. My father has a bunch of guns. He used to be a cop. I fired a gun, I think, twice in my entire life, and it was just, like a little Derringer thing or something. I'm not like anti-gun or something like that. I just personally don't like them. But when it comes to guns that I like seeing used, the best gun I ever saw the Punisher use was a MAC-10. I learned about MAC-10s through reading Punisher comic books, and I always thought the MAC-10 was like the coolest, like little mini Uzi, and I thought that was neat.
Somebody asked our favorite thing about Hitler and Stalin, our 5 favorite things about them, and for me, it's dead, 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 dead.
Didn't Hitler promote an anti-smoking campaign?
He may have.
Wasn't the weekend, the idea of a weekend or paid vacation or something, also one of those things?
The weekend actually was that was a more unions? American thing.
Yeah, that was the labor unions. What's my favorite thing about Hitler and or Stalin? Nazis make really cool bad guys.
Yes.
Ultimately, Nazis are really cool bad guys. My favorite thing about Stalin, God, he gave James Bond the best villains. I mean, the one thing I will say about missing the USSR is that James Bond has no more cool opposition. It's all these weird. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, when Sean Connery is going up against From Russia with Love guys, no, From Russia with Love was Roger Moore, wasn't it?
Oh God,
oh shit, no. From Russia with
I'm gonna lose my man card here.
No. From Russia with Love was Sean Connery's. The Spy Who Loved Me was Roger Moore. That's why I was getting mixed up. Anyway, yeah, when James Bond was going up against some commie spy or something, it was always far more interesting than like some weird gimmicked. Yeah. Anyway, I could go on. But well, this is not a movie chat.
Well, it's not. But I think one of the problems with Bond villains now, and it happens with any kind of international thing, Mission Impossible, any of that shit,
yeah,
is we have some good enemies. We just can't make movies about them.
Yeah, there's no evil empire anymore. I mean, even Russia has been so reduced in both size and potency over the last 20 years, 30 years now, I guess. Yeah, there's I mean, as far as the American side of things, there's no counterpart on that thing. I mean, by all accounts, America is like the superpower.
We could have China, North Korea. There are some that could be good, but we just won't do them because,
well, or
you know, Muslims in general, you can't fucking
well,
go
yeah,
there.
I mean, yeah, in the 90s, you could get away with a lot of Islamic terrorist movies like Executive Decision.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
The 5 seconds of Steven Seagal before he died, which was, you know why that happened?
No.
So Steven Seagal was supposed to be in that movie like all the way through, but early on in the production, he got, as far as I understand it, like ridiculously ill, like I guess influenza or something.
Oh, the flu
so
sucks.
they had to rewrite the entire thing where Kurt Russell became the main guy, and his sort of sidekick, more or less, in the movie ended up being John Leguizamo. So they decided to kill off Steven Seagal right at the beginning. So when I saw that movie, because it was advertised as Steven Seagal, Kurt Russell, it blew me away. Like at that point, I was like, I have no idea what's going to happen next. This is awesome. It was amazing. But yeah, no, you can't do Islamic terrorists as easily anymore unless you give like sort of a both sides of the coin perspective on the situation now, or something like that. It seems like. And as far as North Korea, have you seen the recent remake of Red Dawn?
I have not. That's one that it's my childhood, and it was a shitty enough movie.
Well, no, I'm not recommending you see it, but the story behind it was the enemy in that movie, because it was set in modern times. The original was Cuba and Russia, right?
Mm-hmm.
The remake was supposed to be China and Russia, or at least I think Russia was a part of it. Anyway, they made that movie. They tested it out, and lo and behold, it didn't test well in Chinese markets.
Right.
So they took the movie, they went back to the editing room, they digitally changed all the flags from Chinese to North Korean. They changed all the insignias from Chinese to North Korean. They changed some dialogue. And somehow North Korea was capable of invading the United States. And it was just the dumbest fix ever. So if you watch the movie now, everything that you see that looks North Korean was originally Chinese, the language and everything else. And it's an even dumber movie now because, yeah, North Korea invading the United States, and not going to happen.
Do they even have a fucking navy to get over here? If they do, it can't be very big.
I'm sure they can afford some canoes.
Somebody asked if I prefer tearing apart Steve Shives, Milo Stewart, or Lacey Green. Steve Shives. I've not actually torn into Milo except for in the Roaming Millennial video. Lacey doesn't really do anything anymore, and Steve is just such a giant asshole. It's fun to do.
You know what I'd like to have?
What's that?
As a YouTuber or something, I'd like to have a frenemy. Someone who is on the opposite side of things, but someone who I can have civil debates with about things that we disagree on, rather than I'm not saying there isn't any value to taking a video that some other person has put out there and doing your own commentary on it or something, but there's a limit to how productive that can be. I'd like it if there were someone on quote unquote the other side of the issue that was willing and able to actually have a civil discussion. You know, if only, I wish that Steve Shives would be open to just having a debate with somebody. I don't even care who it is, but just having the balls to actually just like, you know, be willing to debate his point against someone else, even if he doesn't think he's going to win, or the idea is not that you're going to convince the other side, but just to do it.
Well, I don't know if you watched that whole live stream about the Nazi punching that Shives, Chrissy Winters, and Kevin Logan were in.
No, I didn't see that.
They actually say in there that the only valid arguments they've ever heard against feminism come from other feminists. It comes from when they talk to each other. I'm like, are you fucking retarded?
So yeah, the only people worth listening to about possible flaws in your thinking are people who are already sympathetic to your way of thinking.
People who think just like you. Yep.
That is okay. How I don't think Steve Shives is a complete idiot. Okay, I mean he's a thinking individual. If you look at his old stuff on like religion and everything else, he's a rational, reasonable guy, or he used to be. So how did they have a conversation like that and not just patently understand that they're talking about an echo chamber?
Because if you go back to when Steve was supposedly rational, he was already just latching on to arguments other people made.
Yeah,
They're not,
Thunderfoot and others.
yeah, they're not his own arguments, and that's the same thing he's doing now. And you can actually see him almost fighting with himself because he knows he's fucking wrong. You can't listen to what he says and have any kind of logic in your brain and go, yeah, that makes sense. So there are times where you see him trying just a little too hard to force his point, but I can't tell if he's actually stupid or if he's just so hell-bent on being part of the feminist crowd, because that's where he had his big break with other atheists, was because he wanted atheist plus.
Yeah, atheism plus. Yeah.
Yeah, and it,
Well, I also remember. I mean, I just think about his wife and
oh
just
yeah,
how much pressure there must be on him or has been over the time to try to keep her happy. Um, I mean, I'm not a mind reader or anything, but given the bits and pieces that I've seen of them interacting with one another, it's like I I don't see how this is a healthy relationship for either person. it just
well, in his
it just seems so much despair.
there's been some great comments on my latest video about him, because in his video on his monitor in the background it says this is not normal, and people are like, this is him calling for help.
He's kidnapped. He's asking people to help him. Somebody save him.
Blink twice if you need us to help you.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I don't know. I've watched the transformation of people that I've essentially grown up with, who up to a certain point were people that were, kind of like you and me. They grew up in a world of, you scrape your knee, you get up, you keep running, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, I remember I had a it was Facebook. I stay away from Facebook now. The conversation that essentially was a precursor to me doing YouTube, that I had on Facebook with people that I knew.
Mm-hmm.
There was a story that came out. This is months and months ago, from J.K. Rowling's, or about J.K. Rowling. She had written her latest book, like what was it, like Magic in America or whatever it was. And there was this big controversy for about a week where Native American groups were pissed off at her portrayal of skinwalkers,
Yep.
which was some Native American folklore that she adapted into her mythology. And there was this article that came out from God knows one of the many that said, it's not right. Groups are saying that this is offensive and that she shouldn't do this and everything else, because she as a white woman, she should not write about these things because these have to do with cultures that she's never been a part of. And I made a post on Facebook that was complete sarcasm, but my post essentially read, I can't believe this kind of shit. I mean, think about it. How can I write a story about a vampire when I'm not Romanian?
Right.
Okay, and then one of the people that I know, who leans towards the super left, they read my words, my text on a screen, as serious. And they said something to the effect of, I know, right? I mean, isn't this just awful? And I realized that they were sort of taking the
Oh.
bait that I didn't mean to leave. So I responded to them. I said, so you agree that Rowling shouldn't be allowed to write this kind of thing? And this started a whole avalanche of stuff, because pretty quickly they realized that I was being sarcastic originally. And one of my best friends, at least formerly, who was one of these people who, like I said, used to be able to have water roll off their back.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, they were arguing that she should not write about these things because she is um, uh, offending and she's harming a whole culture of people by not taking seriously their stories and their mythology and everything else, yada yada yada. And so I said, right, but and this is I used to role play vampires back then, and this person knew this and also participated once in a while, and so I said, so when we were writing stories about vampires, we were in the wrong because neither of us are Romanian, correct? And he said something to the effect of, well, she's got a bigger microphone than we do, and she has more responsibility. And so I wrote back, I said, okay, so it's not that it's wrong, or I should say, it's not that it's wrong to do what we're doing. It's that we didn't get caught.
You didn't have a big enough microphone.
You didn't have a big enough microphone. And this went on, and there was one point at which, let me try to make sure I say this correctly because it was a very, very valid point of the whole thing. He said that I asked him to describe what did she do wrong specifically. What did she do wrong? Because when I have these conversations, and I was talking to somebody about this earlier today, before I start tearing into somebody, I try to make sure I understand where they're coming from. What is the basis of their argument? And I finally got him to say something cohesive. And he said, she didn't do enough research about this to write about it. And so I said to him, I said, okay, well, I have no idea how much research she did. I don't know. But let's assume for a moment that she did all the research you could imagine. And it still came out the way it did in the book because that's how she decided it fit into her story. Would you then say that she is on good standing? And I think there was like an hour delay between the reply, and he said something like, no, that just makes it worse. And my brain exploded. Exactly. And that was the point at which I knew it doesn't matter how you try. It doesn't matter how you try to reason it out. It doesn't matter how you try to figure where is the line between right and wrong when you come to a declaration like that. They are hell-bent on making a villain of anybody they disagree with, and it doesn't, logic is not a factor. And it isn't. And again, this is someone that I know is a smart person. This is a reasonable person. This is a person that I know has a very creative mind, was not a dummy, but they had been, I don't know, indoctrinated. It was like watching a religious zealot. It just, to this moment, it just, I don't even have the words.
In that argument, because I had the same argument with friends online, my point to them was, she wrote Harry Potter and nobody has any problem with that.
Right.
This is a little white boy. Something she could never be. And nobody had a problem with that. She wrote about wizards and dragons. And
exactly.
There were vampires in Harry Potter. Nobody had any issue until it came to Native Americans are upset. Shut the fuck up. It's story time. Yeah. But when you were telling your story, it did make me laugh because, do you watch South Park?
I haven't had cable since 2003, so no.
There's a great episode, Cartoon Wars. It's a two-parter, I think. I can't remember if it was 2 or 3. I think it's only 2. But the whole premise of it is that Family Guy is going to make a television show showing Muhammad, and terrorists are going to blow up everything because they did it. And Cartman is freaking out about it. He thinks Family Guy should be taken off the air, and it turns out he just hates the show. But he's there preaching about how wrong it is for people to be mocking religions. And Kyle looks at him and goes, "You rip on Jews all the time." He goes, "Yeah, but I'm just one little guy. I'm just one person. It's not like I have a television show where everybody can hear me."
Right, exactly.
It was just such a great thing. And yeah, apparently you had the exact same experience.
Yeah, that reminds me, I told a story before about how in a social group I was a part of, there was like a rape joke that somebody had told, and there was this big hubbub over, rape jokes are bad and everything else. And the person that was sort of the pearl clutcher of the whole situation was saying, it's not right to do blah, blah, blah. And one of my friends, who is a Jew, he said somewhere in there, he says, how many oven jokes have you made with me there?
Right.
And I laugh at them because they're jokes. So what are you talking about? It's this weird.
We're losing our sense of humor as a society. We're turning German. And it's not a good thing. Look what happened when the Germans get too upset.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, God, with Trump in office, we're not going to be on a policy level turning into Germany anytime soon.
Yeah,
unless you believe that Trump is Hitler, of course.
He's Hitler. Didn't you hear? We all are.
Yeah, but I try to think back to like what was funny to me as a kid. What I used to, I mean, I just think of like regular TV shows I used to watch as a kid, and none of these things would be allowed today.
Right.
They'd be so watered down or so sanitized or just not allowed on the air at all. I mean, I'm trying to think like
a comedian like George Carlin, who is one of the gods of comedy, would not be allowed to start his career today.
Richard Pryor.
Richard Pryor.
You know, Richard Pryor would probably get away with it because, well, he's black, so obviously he can say anything he wants, and that's okay. But yeah, George Carlin, Bill Hicks, Dennis Leary. I mean, holy shit, these guys would never get 3 feet out the door. I was about to say something that would tell something personal about me, so I'm not going to say it. But anyway, yeah, I don't know where things go. I was talking about the other night how, speaking of Dennis Leary, like Demolition Man, how we're kind of turning into that society where, you know, your car bumps up against a wall and suddenly super duper foam splurts out to keep you safe. You know,
we're going to have that on our bodies soon.
Oh, I made a joke.
From everything.
I made a joke one time on another Facebook argument that when somebody was getting all bent out of shape over having feminism criticized, I said, "So what's next? Are we going to have like pillow suits?
Yeah,
so that you can't be injured by anything." And then somebody sent me a picture of a pillow suit, and I was like, "Oh shit."
Somebody in the chat mentioned Lenny Bruce. I never thought Lenny Bruce was that funny.
No,
he was definitely controversial.
Yes,
but, very Andy Kaufman to me.
Yeah, his style at the time was unique because it was so edgy.
Yes.
But as far as, and that's what made him famous, as far as pushing the boundaries of what was acceptable as far as like just language and humor and such. But as far as quality is concerned, with the perspective we have now with, like, you know, like I said, Carlin and the rest, it's you know, but at the time it was revolutionary in that sense.
Looking to see if we've been asked any questions. I think we've ignored chat long enough that they're not asking anymore.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll specifically now watch chat for the next couple of minutes, just so you know, because we Monkey and I get lost in our back and forth tennis matches here, and I on behalf of Monkey, because I can take that position because I say so. I apologize for us ignoring you.
I would apologize, but if you've been watching us this long, you should know better.
Are Jews real? Depends. You know, depends on the Jew.
I've actually had some interesting conversations with that because of my first Milo video, where I point out he's a gay Jew.
Right.
And a lot of people who don't understand how Judaism works have come back and, well, he's a Catholic.
Right. Yeah.
Well, yes, but he's a Catholic Jew.
Right.
There's the religion and the ethnicity.
Yeah. Skeptor, who is an Israeli, he did a video a long time ago where he broke down like, okay, I'm going to explain Jewish to you. And he went through all the different things. It's like, yes, it can be confusing because the same word can mean two different things depending on the context, but you can be a Jew, but not practice Judaism.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. And it's fine. I mean, I didn't quite understand the distinction until just a few years ago myself, when a friend of mine sort of broke it down for me, because I was kind of like, I keep hearing these things in different ways and it kind of confuses me. So, yeah.
This is a sad fact about my life. I have actually known more Muslims than I've known Jews.
For all I know, I have known lots of Muslims, but I don't talk religion with most people. If I know someone who's Jewish, it's usually only because they make jokes about themselves. Like I have a friend who's a business owner, and he was describing to me some situation where some guy was trying to make a deal with him, and he told how he spotted all the little weaknesses in the guy's pitch and how he finagled a better deal. And he said, yeah, and that's the day I told my wife I got my Jew badge.
Uh,
And I was like, okay, well, hey, man, whatever.
well, I've known exactly one person that I knew for a fact was Muslim, and he was one of the greatest guys I've ever met. He was over here on a student visa, and he was the biggest dog you've ever met. He drank, he smoked, he violated every one of Muhammad's laws except eating pork. It was the only thing he wouldn't do.
Okay.
But great guy. But yeah, I've known one Muslim and 0 Jews.
So we have a question that I scrolled up for because we had a complaint that you weren't paying attention. Question. This is from Zortsha. Question for the monkey: if you were forced, would you have perverted gay sex with Stalin, yourself as a kid via time travel, Hitler, or commit suicide in front of everyone you know and love? Which would you prefer?
Well, I couldn't do the suicide one to my family.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to fuck Stalin.
You'd rather fuck Stalin?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, see, it would be between Stalin and Hitler because I couldn't do it with myself as a child because that's child abuse.
And that would like fuck you up in a reverse. Yeah. Okay. Although it might explain things.
Exactly.
It's like predetermination. Woo.
Somebody asked my religious affiliation. I am agnostic.
I am a non-believer because atheism, thanks to all the politicization of it as a term, now has so much more attached to it than simply I don't believe in a god. So I prefer to say I'm a non-believer. That usually throws people off.
Am I the bitch or the butch? Well, that's a complicated answer. I am very much whipped by my wife, but only to a point. I'm a very easygoing guy, so I'm perfectly happy to keep her happy. But I have my limitations. When it comes to in the bedroom, I am very much the man. Carry boxers or briefs? I actually wear boxer briefs.
Riding the line.
That's right. They're just more comfortable. Boxers don't have the support you really need, and briefs have a little too much.
I have both boxers and boxer briefs. I don't really have like a preference so much. I guess it just depends on what I find when I'm stumbling around in the morning getting ready for work.
What would I do for a Klondike bar? I'd go to the store and buy one.
Hi ho, Kermit the Frog here.
I love your Kermit.
Yeah, Base Mama asked for it, so there's my Kermit impression. Was it you that told me I sound less like Kermit's older brother with this microphone than the older?
Yes,
one?
yes.
Okay. Let's see. I can do Kermit. I can do Bullwinkle.
You do a very good Bullwinkle.
Yeah, Bullwinkle and Barney the Purple Dinosaur are not that far off from each other as far as my intonation goes. Other than
they're pretty
that,
similar.
Yeah, it's like, gee, Rocky, where's Boris and Natasha? And then there's I love you, you love me.
I need you to sing that whole thing for a video.
The whole I love you song?
Yeah, or at least, up to we're a happy family or whatever the hell it was.
We're a happy. Yeah, it's like it was when I was in grade school or what it was. I love you, you love me, homosexuality, or some stupid thing like that.
Somebody in the chat asked who you were. This is Scribe Light. He has his own channel. He is not what you would call a shitlord. He's actually very intelligent and breaks things down. Scribe is the one that we all go to when we need a certain word and we can't quite figure out what it is. Very intelligent. He's linked below. Make sure you check him out after you're done watching us here.
Yeah, that whole come to me when you can't figure out a word or anything. Every time that somebody says something like that, I think of a saying from Mark Twain. Give a man a reputation as an early riser, and that man can sleep in till noon.
Right. Good point. Good point.
Scribelight, will you impersonate wrecked social justice warrior videos, aka Gutenberg? I have. I've done one video so far where I didn't make any commentary, and I just linked together clips of other videos. It's one of my early videos, and actually, weirdly, one of my most watched ones. It was criticizing a company called Study Bay that you can pay to have your academic papers written by other authors for. So basically, it's just cheating.
Mm.
And so far, it's the only video I've made. Well, the only video at length. I've done a couple of like joke videos, but the only video at length where I linked other things together. As far as like doing a, wrecked social justice warrior videos or wrecked feminist videos, kind of just compilation. I don't. It's kind of weird. Like Gutenberg talks about how impressed and how much respect he has for the commentators who can actually script things and sort of analyze stuff like that, because he says what he does is relatively easy. I look at what he does and I just think, if I tried to do that, I'd want to try to form some kind of wordless narrative out of it.
Yeah.
And I don't. I guess I could try it sometime. I suppose I probably should, just to see if I can get away with it. But yeah, I don't know. Just doing a and trying to find the material. That's the other thing too. I don't understand where some people find their like bedroom feminist videos, or what search terms they're using or something. I have like basically like a set list of words in my head that I look up when I'm searching for stuff. But
you guys just got to see something I really like. Every once in a while, Scribe will misunderstand something.
Oh.
And he will tell a long story, which I love.
I think they were asking you to do
I think they were asking you to do a voice imitation.
Was he?
I'm fairly certain that's what they were asking.
Oh, I thought he was asking me if I'd ever Scribe, like, will you impersonate Rex Social Justice Warrior videos, aka Gutenberg?
That's his channel name.
Oh, I thought he meant the videos. Shit.
I fucking love it when we talk.
Okay, Scotch. Can I do Gutenberg? Hey, faggots.
No, yeah, that's close.
Other than I don't know if I'd have to practice. I haven't tried to do like a Philadelphia East Coast accent before. I'm actually really bad at trying to do like people voices. I can do cartoon shit all day. I can make the tone of my voice go all the way up to really high and all the way down low really good and everything else. But I can't do like people voices really that well.
We've had a lot of questions here.
What's the painting? The painting is called The Wanderer Above the Sea Fog, and it's by Caspar David Friedrich from, I think, 18 something or other. It's completely public domain. It's a picture I've always liked for whatever reason, and so I just decided to use it.
Did you ever fantasize about banging your teachers as a kid?
Hell yeah.
Didn't everyone?
Oh, I had that was another story I was going to tell earlier about things you say in school that you couldn't get away with these days. When I was in third grade, we were coming back from lunch or whatever, and one of the kids said, "Hey, you should go ask the teacher a certain word." I won't say the word because it'll be the punchline. But and I was like, I didn't know what the word was, and I didn't understand what it was like. He's like, "Okay," and I'm like, just a little compliant little kid, and so I go up to my teacher and I say, what's a dildo? Nice. And the look on her face was like, that is something that adults use. That's as far as she would go. And she says, you should probably talk to your parents. And then she like who told you to ask you that? And I'm like, I don't know. I didn't rat. I wasn't a rat.
These days that child would probably get a show. Female teachers have lost their goddamn minds.
God, it was always a thing, and this is sort of the separation between a female teacher and a male student versus a male teacher and a female student. There was a couple of instances in my growing up where male teachers in the schools I went to ended up getting in trouble for. Actually, the weird thing was, well, maybe it's not weird, but at the same time the Mary Kay Letourneau thing was going on. And for those of you that do not know who Mary Kay Letourneau was, she was a school teacher in Oregon.
I don't remember the
anyway,
state.
I think it was West Coast. Anyway, she was a teacher who had an affair with I think at that time he was like 12 or 13.
12.
And she ended up having a child by this kid. Now, at the same time that was going down, no pun intended, a male teacher in my school had gotten busted for having an affair with a 13-year-old female student. and their cases developed basically in tandem. And she got like some slap on the wrist, and he
Mm-hmm.
got like 5 years or something.
Well, she
And they
not
did the
only got
exact same thing.
not only a slap on the wrist, she was all over television shows and magazines talking about their love.
Yeah, and then she did it
Look at
again.
the,
She got out of jail and she did
yeah.
it again. It's like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
uh,
believe they made one or two TV movies about that. Somebody
oh
asked in the
sure,
chat.
yeah, Lifetime movie of the week or whatever. Do they make TV movies like movies of the week? Remember that when that was a thing? That was like a big event.
Right.
To
Yeah.
like
I don't know if
have
they
like a
still do. I
movie.
don't watch TV very much.
I remember when they did. Well, maybe I don't remember it, but I think I was alive. Anyway, it was whatever happened to Rosemary's Baby.
Oh yeah.
They did a sequel to Rosemary's Baby as a TV movie, and it was just.
Well, they did what? 3 different Joey Buttafuoco movies? Amy
Oh yeah,
Fisher?
there was Alyssa Milano was in one of them,
Yep, yep.
and there was at least two or three of them. Oh, speaking of old TV stuff, do you remember Tuesday night thrillers on USA?
Yes.
And do you remember USA Up All Night with Gilbert Gottfried and that squeaky voice lady?
Yes.
USA Up All Night. Yeah. I miss that stuff. That was about as close as I ever had to like an Elvira when I was growing up, like Tuesday Night Chillers or whatever it was.
Oh God, how many people in the chat know who Elvira is?
If you don't know who she is, you might know her tits.
Mistress of the Night.
Mistress of the Night. You know, if there isn't, I bet if they did a late night horror movie like Joe Bob Briggs kind of thing again. You remember Joe Bob Briggs?
Not familiar.
Oh God, Joe Bob Briggs Drive-In Theater. So he was on, I think, Showtime, and he would do these movie intro things. He was basically like the old, Count Chocula or whatever. And
Hmm.
he would start out the video, and he was just a guy in a redneck shirt in a trailer, or whatever. And his real name is John Bloom, and he had this great Texas twang accent. And he'd say, "Well, tonight we're going to watch roller derby sluts in the slime ball bolorama. This movie's got I rated about three breasts, 2 decapitations, and 1 or 2 slime rapes, but we'll have to get to that." And then he just like at different points in the movie there'd be a break and you do some little commentary thing. It was hilarious. And later he got a job on TNT Monster Vision, and he was the host of Monster Vision on TNT, which was obviously much more watered down than what you could do on Showtime.
Right.
But it was still, oh God, Joe Bob was hilarious.
Somebody asked how old you are. You what, 37?
Yes, I am 37. Silk Stockings on USA. Oh God, I remember staying up late to watch that, thinking I was going to see some like naked woman or something, but it was always just very like softcore.
Yeah, way softcore.
Way softcore.
Somebody asked if I smoke. Yes, I do.
I can hear you doing it, I think.
You probably can usually.
Tales from the Crypt. They're supposed to be rebooting that series. And
I love Tales from the Crypt.
Yes.
I didn't watch it probably after the first season because I just got bored with it, but it was a great show.
Yeah, and you know what? And for all else, the first Tales from the Crypt movie, Demon Knight, I still love. I still love that movie. The Billy Zane and the dialogue and just the way they laid it, like Jada Pinkett Smith before I think she was Jada Pinkett Smith. Just everything in that was just a great movie. That was a fun flick.
I actually smoke roll my owns because I live in a state where it's expensive as fuck to smoke. When I started smoking, I lived in Virginia, and you could get a pack for a fucking $1. It was wonderful.
Oh, Twilight Zone. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And then smoking became the worst thing ever, and taxes shot way up. So I actually roll my own, and it comes out to about $1 a pack now. So,
there was an episode. Tales from the Dark Side. Oh, that's even different. I love Tales from the Dark Side. But there was this in one of the Twilight Zone revivals. I think it was the '90s one. There was an episode called "Need to Know," and it was a very, very simple story. It started out with like there was a guy standing on a road out like next to a cornfield, and he was just like laughing insanely. And some guy pulls up, and he's like, "Are you okay? What's wrong?" And the guy says, "Oh, do you want to know? Do you want to know?" And the guy's like, "Know what?" And he goes up and whispers something in his ear, and then that guy starts laughing insanely and like going nuts. And then it turns into this thing where this detective guy kind of shows up because all these people are going nuts. He's trying to figure out what's going on. And long circuitous story gets to the end where he finds he's told, "Go talk to the professor. The professor knows." And he goes into this professor's house, who's like Indiana Jones but old and everything. And The guy's like, "What's going on? Why is everybody in this town going nuts?" And the guy looks at him with these big wide eyes, and he's the only sort of like non-irrational person we've seen in this entire show so far. He looks at him and says, I was on a dig in Syria, and I found it." And he's like, "Found what?" "The answer. The answer to everything. Life, the universe, it's all so simple. Do you want to know?" And the guy's like, "No," and he runs out. It's like, "No."
The one that always stuck with me, I believe it's from the original Twilight Zone movie, is the Leslie Nielsen one.
Yeah.
Where Barry's the dude.
Oh no, that's Creep Show. That's the first Creep Show.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, Ted Danson and his yeah. He buries them up to the neck in the water, and then they come back as like sea zombies.
That has fucked me up since I can remember. The first time I saw that is like just dying that way. Not even the zombie part. I don't. Yeah. That didn't. But this is the second time I've seen this. Favorite beers. I'm not a beer drinker. If I have to drink beer, I'll usually go with a Bud Light just because that's what everybody I know drinks.
So two things. First, the Creep Show 2, there's a story in Creep Show 2 called The Raft, I think it's called. And the part in that was always my favorite and creepiest part was there's these kids, they get stuck on this like raft out in the middle of the lake. And there's like this slime running around in the lake that'll eat you alive if you fall in the water. And at one point, of course, it's like horny teenagers and all this. And so at one point, there's like two of them left, and the girl's laying there and trying to get some sleep because they've been going nuts for like a day or something. And the guy wakes up and he turns, and she's just laying there, and her shirt is kind of up a little bit. So he like starts pulling her shirt up and exposes her breasts and all this stuff. And as a kid's like, "Oh boy, boobs." And then she wakes up and she turns her head, and the stuff had seeped in through the crack underneath her face and started eating her face away. But he didn't see it because her head was turned the whole time. And she starts screaming, and then she gets like pulled down under it. It's both. It was like one of those, you want to talk about like the ultimate buzzkill for a kid watching this movie. It's like, "Oh boy, boob. Oh my God." And somebody else asked, "Have I ever seen Tales from the Hood with Snoop Dogg?" Hell yes, I have.
I still haven't seen that. That's one I need to.
Clarence Williams III, who was in the Mod Squad, is the narrator essentially of that anthology movie. And there's this point at the end, because the whole thing is that these mobsters break into this mortuary home or whatever, and they're looking for drugs that are supposedly in this mortuary. And this is the sort of the binding backstory to all the little anthology things they do, is sort of a Twilight Zone creep show kind of thing. And at the very end, they're getting tired of listening to all his crazy stories. So the guy points a gun at his head and says, "Man, just give us the shit." And he looks at them and he's got this big grin on his face. It's like, "Ah, yes, the shit. Oh, you'll get the shit." It was just like, it's so good.
See, that's a movie I would probably love. I love goofy black movies. One of my favorite movies is Undercover Brother.
Oh yeah, Undercover. Oh yeah, how about Black Dynamite?
I haven't seen that.
Oh, dude. Oh, you have to see Black Dynamite. They made it like an old blaxploitation flick. God. They even intentionally put in errors into the film, like the boom mic coming down in the middle of a scene. They did a whole scene where like the actor changed of a character in the middle of the scene because of God knows why. That just happens in the old days. It's so funny. It's a little long, and the ending drags out a bit, but everything in the first like hour or so just blows my mind.
I have to correct somebody in chat. It's not Don't Drink the Juice in South Central.
No,
it's
Don't Be a Menace
to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood.
Yes,
one of my favorite movies. Somebody did ask our favorite movies, which we discussed in our movie chat.
But depends on the genre.
My all-time favorite movie is An Officer and a Gentleman.
Right. My default favorite movie is The Hunt for Red October. But that is sort of like my go-to answer. I could go on, and we have gone on for a very long time about favorite movies of different genres and things, and I like different movies for different reasons. So, but yeah, one that is a perfect film to me, short of Tremors. Tremors is also a perfect film, but Hunt for Red October had so much more in it, I think.
For the record, we have talked about doing more movie talks because there's just so much to talk about, and we enjoy doing it. So keep an eye out for that. That'll probably happen sometime soon. We'll get bored one night.
Best movie ever, the porno I made with your mom. Oh, thanks, Tailed. I appreciate that. Were you reciting Braveheart during the thrusting?
Most of the chats have been when I'm sleeping. Yeah, sorry about that. My schedule is really weird right now. Even the medical stuff aside, I've been watching my granddaughter most days, so I can't get on to do anything till like after 8 o'clock Eastern time. So most stuff that happens is late these days.
I would fight a feral cat over a rabid dog because I don't want to get rabies.
Yeah.
I don't want to go out like Old Yeller.
The next Siskel and Ebert, you and me.
Oh, Jesus. I think I said it on our movie stream, but if you want to see one of the best Siskel and Ebert reviews ever, just look up Siskel and Ebert review North.
I watched that because of you. That was funny as hell.
Oh God, it is so they ripped that movie so bad. I love it.
Ogre of Force. I'm sorry. What I use to edit, I use Adobe Premiere. It is a pay program. If you're looking for something easy to use that's free, go with Movie Maker as you're starting out. And for audio, I use Audacity. It's another free program. They're both very easy to use and learn. But to start out, yeah, don't spend any money. I would just use those.
Star Trek or Star Wars? I like Star Wars a lot more than I like Star Trek, but I like Star Trek. It depends on the series. Like Next Generation will always be. I mean, I watched that when it first premiered on television with my dad, so I've got a lot of sentimentality towards that particular series. Deep Space Nine. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say Deep Space Nine was really good, even despite the legitimate criticisms of it being something of a ripoff of Babylon 5. It eventually found its own grounding about season 3 or so. Voyager, I could never get into it. It was just so Gilligan's Island and space thing to me. It just didn't make any sense, and I didn't like it too much. And then Enterprise. I will sing my version of the Enterprise theme song shortly, just for entertainment value, but I'll let Monkey talk.
No, I was just going to say, I haven't seen Enterprise yet. Voyager, I tried watching. I really did. Couldn't watch it. Deep Space Nine, I agree with your assessment. They tried way too hard in the early seasons to play it very serious, very straight. With only, what's his name?
Cisco.
Quark.
Oh, Quark. Yeah, which was a great character all around.
He was the only comic relief in there. But the original Next Generation was like that too. It wasn't until season 3 or 4 that it really hit its stride.
Yeah, it took a while. Most shows do. It's rare that a show is great from the beginning, and that show would be The Shield. By the way, anybody who's listening, if The Shield was a church, I am its high priest.
Better Read Than Dead has it right. I am 41 years old.
Have I seen The Arrival? I've seen The Arrival. It had Charlie Sheen in it. And Silver, what's his name? Ron Silver. That was the first Arrival. That was the 90s movie called The Arrival.
I want to go back to
the movie called The Arrival is different.
I want to go back to the question of Star Wars versus Star Trek. That's a hard one if you just start with the first 3 Star Wars movies, meaning 4, 5, and 6 now. Because I love those. Those are excellent, and I can watch them all the time. Depending on where you're talking about in Star Trek, I can take it or leave it, especially like early seasons of Next Generation. No, thank you. I'll watch them if I'm bored. Late seasons, I love. I can watch those over and over again. I can't make a one or the other pick. I think they're different enough that you can enjoy both separately.
It's kind of the reverse. Like early Star Trek was bad, and then it got better. Early Star Wars was great, and then it got worse as it got newer.
Yeah. DC or Marvel? Definitely Marvel.
Marvel. I grew up not only with Star Wars, the original movies, but I just ate up the expanded universe stuff from Heir to the Empire and onward when the book series came out. So between the role-playing games and everything else, long before the prequels, I just ate up like all this cool. Even the bad Star Wars novels were still Star Wars. I still think that bad Star Wars is still Star Wars at the end of the day. And then
I
of course KOTOR.
I
Oh,
don't
Knights of the Old
remember the
Republic is
name
so
of the
good.
book, but
Mm-hmm.
I stole it from my school library.
Yeah.
It's a Han Solo and Chewbacca book.
Mm-hmm.
Which is probably worth a lot of money right now, but I can't sell it because, like I said, it technically belongs to a high school I used to attend.
Well, there's a Han Solo trilogy that takes place before A New Hope that tells kind of the story of a younger Han Solo and his adventures as a smuggler and everything else, and sort of the backstory of him and Jabba and all that. There is an implication in some of the early information coming out of the Han Solo film that's in production right now that they are basing some characters and situations off of those books, which is not a bad thing because those books were actually very good. So my fingers are crossed that it's going to be a decent Han Solo movie, even if it is an actor that looks nothing like Harrison Ford and it's apparently only happening a few years before New Hope and all that. And but Woody Harrelson's good, and I hope to see some smuggling and some swashbuckle.
I think it would be great to return Han Solo to the place he deserves in Star Wars lore as the badass.
What was Commander Cleavage's name in TNG? You mean Deanna Troy?
Love Deanna Troy.
Yeah, Deanna
Marina
Troy
Sirtis. Oh,
after she got her hair out of the bun and let her hair down,
yes,
she
yeah.
looked a lot better. But when she had that weird Betazoid
I
hair
have a
bun,
thing for dark curly hair. Oh, hell yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm a redhead man myself.
Now,
yeah.
Ideally, absolutely. I like the very stereotypical Irish chick, very pale skin, freckles across her nose.
Yep.
Yeah, Deanna Troy. Yeah, she did age poorly, but so did Jonathan Frakes. He doesn't look real good these days.
You know what I just thought was cool? You remember the cartoon show Gargoyles?
Yeah.
Yeah, so many Star Trek people are in that show. I mean, Jonathan Frakes played Xanathos, the guy who was basically the evil, both the villain and the good guy. Sort of, he rescued the gargoyles. Marina Sirtis was the voice of Desdemona, who was the love interest of Goliath, and what's his name who played Worf? He's a voice in there too. It was like all these stars. Oh, and Data played I forget his name. I know his character name more than I know his real name. He played Puck when they went into that whole weird Gaelic Irish sort of mythos and stuff. That was a really good show. Like the second episode of that show had a gun in it, like gun safety. The main character got shot accidentally with a gun. You wouldn't see that today. Jesus.
See, I'm a little offended you didn't know Michael Dorn's name right off the top of your head.
I know. Well, I had a Jack and Coke before we started, so my brain's a little mushy right now.
You know, he was on the show Chips.
Michael Dorn?
Yes.
I might have known that, but yeah, I can believe it. You know that The Rock was on Star Trek.
Yes, I did. Do I play D&D much? I don't. I used to when I was in junior high. So what, 12, 13. I do love D&D, but I play more D&D video games than pen and paper.
I have played. So I only recently played D&D at any length of time, like for a whole campaign. I played Vampire the Masquerade a lot, and
I like Masquerade
a lot. Yeah, Masquerade was good. The first time that I submitted myself to a D&D game, I spent 3 hours making a character, and then the DM runs this story where we all start out at a village or whatever, and then the village is attacked, and then we all fight. We spend another 2-3 hours just rolling dice and fighting, and then of course we lose, and then session's over with, and then the DM let us know, yeah, you're supposed to lose that. And I was like, wait a sec, what? And it's like, yeah, well, when the campaign is you have to fight first, and then you have to go off and get revenge. And I thought, why didn't you just narrate that? Why did we have to sit there rolling for a story element that either narrate it or don't tell us we were supposed to lose, because that just
right.
And I didn't play D&D again for like 9 years, and then the next time I played it, I was roped into it. I swear to God, it wasn't the same campaign, but he ran the exact same opening plot and also told us we were supposed to lose at the end. I just said, fuck this. And I just about flipped the table. Eventually, I found a group that actually ran it straight, and it was fun. So
The reason I stopped playing was the DM wanted something to happen in the story, and he left it open enough that it didn't have to happen that way. And so I played my character how I would play my character. And he got pissed off and killed my character just outright.
Oh, God.
Which I considered bullshit, and we had a big fight over it, and I never played again.
The last vampire game I ran was a Sabbat game where everybody was bad guys, and they all I usually have an idea. Like I run a game sort of by the seat of my pants a little bit. I have a rough sketch of an idea, and I can't recall a time that I've ever actually used a pre-published module or campaign. I try to make everything up as I go, and the idea is that they'd accidentally picked up some money they shouldn't have, and so they escaped to Vegas, where there's all this political machinations going on that they don't know about, and they have to discover it as they go, as they show up in Vegas as a pack. And it was great. It was great. I was able to run it for like 5 months or something before I broke.
Nice.
It was awesome. And Star Wars. I love running Star Wars RPGs too.
Did you play Bloodlines?
Oh, I played the shit out of Bloodlines. Oh, I still have it. Hell.
I still have my original box and everything.
Oh yeah. And you know what? That is you know that game's still being modded.
It's so sad that Trokio went out of business.
Yeah, it was one of those situations like so many other games where it was like this labor of love. They put it out earlier than they meant to because they're being because Activision is a bunch of assholes and put pressure on them to do that because they wanted to get their money back. It was also technically the first game to use the Source engine, short of Half-Life, but they had to hold back release because they couldn't release their game before Half-Life came out because of contractual stuff. Which
Half-Life 2.
Sorry, Half-Life 2, yes. And God, I mean, next to KOTOR, probably one of my favorite computer RPGs ever. That's just, it's the voice acting, the storytelling, the depth, the lore into it, the game mechanics, the sense of exploration and everything. It's just, it's so good.
Yeah, I did enjoy Bloodlines, but I actually liked Redemption better.
You know what? Redemption is one of my favorite all-time games, period, just because of the nostalgia value of it and just the campiness of the characters.
I thought it had better extra characters.
Yes, the supporting characters were far more memorable, I thought, than some of the ones in Bloodlines, because between
Jack was the only really good one in Bloodlines.
Yes, and Jack was voiced by the same guy who does Bender.
Oh, okay.
So that helped out a lot. In Redemption, yeah, I didn't like the fact that you were stuck with playing it's a very linear game.
Yeah.
But the voice acting, you know that the voice of Kristoff in that game is the voice of the father in Sons of Anarchy.
Oh, okay.
Whenever Jax is reading his father's diary and you hear his father's voice, that's that actor. And so the first time that I watched Sons of Anarchy, I was sitting with a friend of mine who's also a vampire freak, and we're sitting there listening, like, wait, his dad was Kristoff? I was like, oh my God, he's half vampire.
Andy Griffith or Don Knotts? Oh, wow, you went way old school. Ooh. Don Knotts, because he's funny.
And it's Don Knotts, not Knox.
Oh, that's Knotts. Right, it is. Yeah. It's T.
Yeah.
T-S.
Yeah, he was funny. Although Andy Griffith, I mean, if we're just talking about the Andy Griffith show, yeah, Don Knotts. If we're talking about like just the individuals, well, you've got Matlock.
I love Matlock.
And you've got the Apple Dumpling Gang. And I think Matlock probably wins.
Matlock is an old person show, but I watched it in my 20s and fucking loved it.
You know why I preferred Murder, She Wrote to Matlock? Because in Murder, She Wrote, you could conceivably solve the mystery by watching the show. In Matlock, every time he pulled out some witness or some piece of evidence at the end that you never knew about prior to the end of the show.
Right,
so
yeah.
There's really no way to sort of solve it yourself. Murder, She Wrote, however, at least gave the audience the opportunity through being observant that they could solve it before Jessica did.
Okay, you guys realize you're listening to us talk about Matlock and Murder, She Wrote.
Now, there's two shows I'm surprised they haven't rebooted or tried to reimagine into movies yet.
Oh, they'll be coming.
Oh, God, at some point. Yeah, Angela Lansbury, they'll probably dig her up. And I know she's still alive, but anyway. Oh, speaking of which, I forget what it was, but for some reason, I came across a picture of Angela Lansbury when she was young.
Yeah.
Holy shit, she was hot. Oh my God! Look up a young Angela Lansbury. God damn. Ugh. Yeah, I know I sound weird saying that.
I don't know what to do with that.
I really don't have anything else to tell you.
Mel Brooks or Monty Python? That's a good one. I am more Mel Brooks.
Mm.
I like Monty Python. Those fuckers are funny as hell. But I grew up on Mel Brooks.
I saw more Monty Python as a kid because of PBS
Mm.
and stuff like that, and so I was exposed to that much more. And their humor, in so many ways, is timeless.
My
Yeah.
My favorite thing I've ever seen with Monty Python was when they did an HBO special where they were taking audience questions, and they talked about when they went to Germany and they went to Auschwitz and it was closed. And one of them said, "Tell them we're Jews."
Oh yeah, I remember. I saw that.
That was one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my whole life, because it happened.
Yeah, I always liked the Monty Python as well, because whenever I saw them, the individual actors talking like in talk shows and stuff, they're just so smart. They're so brilliant. Like John Cleese is an absolute genius.
I love listening to John Cleese.
And the disparity between how clownish and ridiculous they were on Python, and then seeing them in real life and just how well-read and urbane and how intelligent they were. My young brain could not quite make these two things fit, because every time I'd ever seen a comedian talk, it was like seeing Robin Williams do an interview. So seeing that you could be like a highly sort of reserved, intelligent person, but also be hilarious, it was a new thing for me when I was. But of course, I was very young at that time.
All of the best comedians, in my opinion, are incredibly smart. We've discussed this before, but like George Carlin was fucking. If you watch him just talk, he was well studied, knew his history, smart guy.
WKRP or Welcome Back, Kotter. Well, WKRP because of the soundtrack, at least the original soundtrack. It took them forever to get the rights to be able to reproduce the original soundtrack when they finally brought it out on DVD, because the first run of that stuff, they had to like replace all the songs, and it didn't make any sense, and it was awful. But when they finally got the rights to it and restored it all to the original soundtrack, oh yeah, WKRP, especially with that cast of characters. Welcome Back, Kotter. My Welcome Back, Kotter, weirdly enough, was probably Ahead of the Class, which also had Howard Hessman in it, who played the teacher and was also on WKRP. But
Johnny Fever
and Les Nessman.
I like WKRP in Cincinnati, but you brought up something that really annoys me about old shows is when they can't get the rights to their songs.
Yeah.
I loved Bosom Buddies.
Oh yes, with the Billy Joel.
Yeah, but it came back on. I think it was on USA, and it had a different opening theme because they couldn't get the right, and I couldn't watch it. It ruined the whole fucking show for me.
Barney Miller and Taxi. I used to watch Barney Miller and Taxi with my parents. Red Dwarf, man. Every year, PBS would have a marathon, and they'd run every Red Dwarf episode that had been made to that point, and then reveal the latest series or something at the time. I couldn't get enough of Red Dwarf. I love
turkeys can fly.
Yes, they can.
Somebody said, I swear, or as God is my witness, I thought turkeys can fly. I have pictures of them way up. I actually have pictures of turkeys sitting on top of my garage, and they did not walk up there.
Night Court. Now, there's another show
I love Night Court.
That would never be made today. Dan Fielding alone as a concept would be so verboten.
He was such a pig.
And that show was so well written, and those characters were so good. And the early seasons, I remember watching the whole Mel Torme obsession and all that stuff. Oh, so good.
I didn't know Mel Torme was a real person until he was finally on the show.
He actually shows up. There was a couple of times where like someone was trying to seduce Judge Stone in his office, right? And they start making out, and they cut to Mel Torme's picture, and went from this like usual, the sort of like genial, happy face to like this shocked face.
Yes.
It was so hilarious.
Oh yeah, Dan Fielding was a great character.
Oh, John Larroquette. He was the narrator for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original film.
Oh wow!
At the very beginning, when they go over like the true story behind this or whatever, that's John Larroquette's voice. And then when they remade the film in 2003 or whatever, they got John Larroquette back, and they did it again. That guy's awesome.
When I go to bed, I always have to watch something, fall asleep to it, and set my TV so it shuts off, so it doesn't keep me awake later. But I've been rewatching the entire run of Married with Children.
Ah.
And I was just thinking about Richard Mole the other day because he guest starred in a two-parter that they did. He
Mm-hmm.
played a mobster.
Yeah.
And I thought, what the hell ever happened to him?
Oh, he's still around. He does voiceover work and stuff. He was the voice of Two-Face on the Batman animated series.
Oh, he's got an excellent voice.
Yeah, he did Harvey Dent Two-Face in the original Batman animated series. And yeah, he does. I saw him on a commercial. I think it was like a credit card commercial not long ago. He's playing like a Viking or something. And unless you knew what Richard Mole looked like before he got old, you probably wouldn't recognize him because he's just so he looks a lot more haggard now, obviously. But yeah, he's as far as I know, he's still working.
I'm going to amaze the chat here.
Uh-oh.
Between Dragon Ball Z and Pokemon, I like Pokemon. I love Pokemon. I watch the show. I play the games. The only thing I don't do is play Pokemon Go.
I think I've seen one episode of each series, and don't I don't care about either one of them.
Somebody asked if I do a face reveal. If I can ever make a living off of this, sure.
Clancy Brown was not the original voice of Two-Face. He may have done it at some point later, but originally it was Richard Mole.
Somebody shouted, "Fuck yeah," when I said something. You should always do that. I'm amazing.
America, fuck yeah.
Black Widow or Catwoman? If we're talking Julie Newmar,
yeah, well, yes.
Catwoman all the way.
Yeah, well, hell, even Michelle Pfeiffer.
Oh God, Michelle Pfeiffer was my longtime crush growing up.
She was one of those people who like never stops being beautiful.
Those eyes, man.
Oh
Fuck.
God.
Like even on screen, they can look into your soul.
Yeah, Catwoman. I'd say Catwoman just in general because regardless of who was portraying her, she was always far more dangerous / sensual than anything they've let Scarlett Johansson do as Black Widow.
Yeah.
I mean, Black Widow is nice to look at, but as far as just like attitude and presence and everything, from Julie Newmar to Eartha Kitt to what's her name? There was another one. I forget her name now.
Halle Berry did it too.
Was it? No, I'm thinking of the old Avengers TV show with Patrick McGeehan or McGowan.
Oh, yeah. See, I would know that if I could remember my Married with Children because they did an episode about
Diana
her.
Rigg. That's something. Diana Rigg. Diana Rigg from the old Avengers show. Man, she was a looker too.
Oh. All right, we need more questions, guys.
Lee Merriweather. Oh, maybe that was it. Maybe that was the name of the other one because there was 3 that did Catwoman on the old '60s shows.
Yep.
Eartha Kitt and
wasn't the one only like in 1 or 2 episodes?
Yeah, I think so.
Before it went to Julie Newmar.
Yeah, I think that might have been it. Or I think Julie
Emma
Newmar
Peel.
was the first one. Yes. Diana Rigg played Emma Peel and John Steed in the. Now you want to talk about a Sean Connery movie I can do without. It was The Avengers where they did that with Ralph Fiennes.
I didn't watch it.
There's a reason, and you're not missing anything.
Some dumb American wants to know tits or ass. I'm an ass man all the way.
Between the two, yeah, I'd go for a nice butt over a big chest.
Would I share my 3DS code? Probably not because I change it from that, or I reset the game to collect the rares. Have I seen the movie Tommy Boy? Yes, I have.
Coke, not Pepsi. Pepsi's garbage.
Oh, come on. Well, when I was younger, I liked Coke, but I can't take it's way more acidic than Pepsi is.
Where are you at? Do you call it soda or pop?
Where I'm at, it's called pop, but where I grew up, I call it soda. Actually, what I call it is whatever it is. It's Coke, it's Pepsi, it's Sprite.
Sure.
If I'm just being general, it's soda, which causes arguments up here. It's the pineapple debate of where I live.
Oh, Faulty Towers. Yeah, there's another show that would never be made today. Oh my God, the jokes they put in there, like with the servant guy who I think was a Spaniard, even though I think he was played by a British guy. The jokes they made about the Germans and all types of stuff. Yeah, and that was John Cleese too. A hilarious show, but something else they would never do today.
G.I. Joe or He-Man? G.I. Joe. I liked He-Man. But yeah, G.I. Joe.
That's a tough one. I like both. Probably He-Man because I had a lot more of the toys and everything.
Oh yeah.
And it, weirdly enough, if you look it up, there, even before the more recent iterations of it, there was some crazy lore behind that
Mm-hmm.
story. And also, what I was always really impressed by was the box artwork for the toys. They're practically Hildebrand paintings. In fact, they might have been Hildebrand paintings, but I mean, it was just so epic. Now, when you get to the Dolph Lundgren movie, that's a completely separate thing.
Oh God.
Even though the
It was so bad.
well, yeah, but the guy who played Skeletor was actually really good, and it was played by the guy who did Dracula. I'm not talking about Vincent Price or Christopher Lee. It was oh my God, somebody in the chat's going to be able to say it before I am because he's a
In
very
which
famous.
Dracula?
Oh God, let me look
There've
it
been
up.
so many iterations. While you're thinking, I'm gonna answer
Yeah.
a few questions here.
I think
SDA,
yeah.
we already answered. We both like Marvel. Go ahead if you caught up with yourself. Go ahead and jump back in.
Frank Langella. That's it. Frank Langella. I think he isn't he the one that like married Whoopi Goldberg or something. Yeah, Frank
Oh,
Langella. Yeah, he
why
played.
would you marry unless you got her pregnant? Why would you marry her?
Uh, 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 uh,
She looks like a horse. Whoopi Goldberg.
no, wait, no. That's Sarah Jessica Parker.
But no, they both look like just different breeds of
No.
horses.
Oh, okay.
Your favorite video game console? We went over this on one of our streams, didn't we?
Well, mine was Sega Genesis, just because
Mine too.
that was the last console I ever owned.
For me, it was the first. It was when everything went 3D.
Yeah, there was like actually layers and stuff to the video games, and
Yep.
of course, Genesis had at that time. I thought the neater games, like I like Sonic the Hedgehog, Zombies Ate My Neighbors, Jungle Strike.
Are you on Steam?
I am on Steam, yes.
They have the Sega console. You can get on there and play all of those old
Yeah,
ones.
I've heard that. Oh, I take it back. Actually, I do own a console. I own an Xbox 360, but I only use it to watch YouTube and Netflix and play movies. I don't really use it for games at all anymore.
Somebody asked Sonic or Mario. I would go Mario.
Yes.
And then somebody else asked Mario or Zelda. I would go Zelda.
Yeah, Zelda. God, I think back to the original Zelda. What a great game! Just
Yeah.
it just the gameplay, the mechanics of it for its time, and sort of the mystery, and also like all the hidden stuff. Like you put Zelda in as your character name, you go to the second world where everything's mixed up, and trying to find the right pattern to get through the forest or the right tree to burn down, all the secrets and stuff. It was one of the first games that just really blew my mind. Also, it came in a gold cartridge, which I was
I had the original gold one. Yeah.
yeah, and God, do you remember when instruction booklets were practically little novels unto themselves?
Yes. Especially
Zelda was one of those first ones for me.
if you ever bought a like say oh God, I'm losing the Baldur's Gate, the original when it came out.
Yeah,
That was a fucking novel.
yeah.
Because it had all of your D&D book stuff in there.
Oh, speaking of when I bought Redemption, I bought the collector's edition, and it came with this book full of lore. It was cool. I still have it here somewhere. It's awesome. It's all lore based around the game and talks about like what happened to the characters in the future, kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
What was their fate? And I thought that was kind of cool.
Somebody, or I think it was SDA, asked us if we'd rather fuck Whoopi or Oprah.
Oprah, because if I knock her up, I'm gonna get rich.
There you go. That good. I'm gonna steal his answer.
That whole Dave Chappelle thing. Gotcha, bitch.
You do a good Dave Chappelle too.
Oh, there was one of his concerts. I forget. It's my sister like burned a copy of one of his concerts for me one time, and I would listen to that thing over and over and over again. It was we saw Dave Chappelle before he was famous. Like he appeared on Letterman or something for like 10 minutes, and this is before all the stuff happened. And so my sister and I will like repeat back to each other that routine once in a while just for fun because we remember it. And we've never heard him do it again.
Even though they're talking about MASH in the chat, even though MASH at the time was counterculture to the establishment, because it was a movie against the Vietnam War is actually what it was about.
Right.
Couldn't be made today for the same reason you couldn't remake Night Court. It was too sexual.
Yeah, it was far too free with the sexuality. Hell, I don't even know that the MASH TV show would be made today, because that show, God, it was the most brilliant mix of drama, comedy, and like you'd see scenes where they're like having the most gallows humor while doing surgery over war victims.
That's why I love the show Scrubs.
Mm,
One, I love their goofy comedy, but the way that they were able to mix humor and just heart-wrenching drama was amazing. I mean,
yeah,
everybody I know loves that show, and I still think it's underrated.
better read than dead. Scribe is Mick Hucknall from Simply Red. Holding back the years. Oh wait.
You were supposed to sing something else for. You were supposed to sing us the
Oh,
theme from Enterprise.
okay. So you've not seen the show, so you won't probably understand. But the theme song to one of the things that really alienated me from Enterprise was that the theme song was not an orchestral theme. It was a pop song.
What?
And it was a
Fuck that.
song called, I believe the name is Faith of the Heart. And the only other time that this song had apparently appeared in wide release was as the music playing over the credits of Patch Adams prior to this.
Mm.
But the song goes, I'll do a little bit. It goes like, I've got faith in my heart. So it's just this really silly song.
What the
And
fuck?
I know. So I at one point I decided to bite the bullet because I hadn't actually watched Enterprise when it was on the air. And so I decided to binge it on Netflix just to give it a chance because I'd heard some people say, well, like a lot of shows, the first seasons or two are kind of weak, but then it got really cool later. And I was like, okay. And they weren't wrong. The third season or so, it started to pick up the pace a little bit, but it never really hit its peak. But for whatever reason, it just became a chore for me to have to skip through the song every time the show came up. So I ended up hearing this song over and over and over again. And so after a while, the only way I could keep my sanity was make up my own lyrics to it. And so you won't know the correct lyrics. The people in the chat might. So my lyrics went, it starts out really, really, really soft. It is, it's been a long time getting from there to here. It's been a long road, but my time is finally near. Oh, I will see my dream come alive at last. I will fuck that guy. And I'm not gonna shave a clown no more. No, I'm not gonna rape a mime. Cause I've got shit in my pants. My bowels have betrayed me. I got poop.
Oh my god!
I can't do it. It's like I got poopy down my leg. It's like I can't hold anything. I've got shit in my it just went on like that. And so I made up my own lyrics, and every time I sing it to myself, I crack up. My bowels have betrayed me is probably my favorite part of that.
Thundercats or Voltron? I was a Voltron person. When I was 10.
And I'll form the head.
Yes. My dad had bought the house he grew up in here in Michigan to retire in. And it was an old wooden farmhouse, and some juvenile delinquents broke in, and they were lighting furniture polish on the floor and then putting it out. And one of them got the bright idea to do it on a couch. 20 minutes later, the house no longer existed, but I had a wonderful Christmas that year. I got the lion robot for Voltron and the car one. Not many people even see the car one anymore because they've rebooted the series and it's just the cats. The car one was cool too.
If you guys want a really funny thing, look up Thundercats bloopers on YouTube. They are absolutely hilarious. If you're a fan of that show, it's just funny listening to like the voices of those characters say horrible things.
I've never been a fan of Thundercats.
No, I watched it, but I never really I never really got into it that much. I remember what was it? Oh, I'm blanking now. Oh, do you remember in Humanoids?
Oh yeah.
In Humanoids, there was Bigfoot and his monster machines. Rock Lords. Oh, Rock Lords. Visionaries, those guys with the little holograms on their chests. What else? Shirt Tails, Snorks.
Shirt Tails. Oh my god.
Yeah, Shirt Tails and Snorks.
The little monkey, surprisingly, was my favorite.
Yeah, and there was the Wuzzles.
Oh yes.
And
we are going way old school tonight.
My Pet Monster and Popples, Pound Puppies. What else did I watch? There was Tiger Sharks, which was kind of a takeoff on Thundercats, but it was like more, I don't know, kind of sci-fi. Oh, Bionic Six. You remember Bionic
Oh
Six?
yeah.
Jeez,
When I was in high school, the one show, I mean, I
Mask.
was
Oh yeah, Mask.
actually
Yeah.
in high school. Every day I would go home to watch Rescue Rangers, Chippendale
Ah,
Rescue Rangers.
Chippendales Rescue Rangers. Yeah, the Disney DuckTales, Chippendales Rescue Rangers, Darkwing Duck, Tailspin. You know, Tailspin was based off of.
Jungle Book.
Well, no, see, it was based off two things. So the characters were based off of Jungle Book. The situation, the pilot and the pirates and the island and all that stuff,
Oh yeah.
that was based off an old TV show called Legend of the Golden Monkey. And if you look it up, or something like, or Tale of the Golden Monkey or whatever, and it was about like this tropical island and this cargo pilot guy who wore a cap, sort of like Baloo. And yeah, it was really weird because when I saw the car, I'd seen the TV show a long time ago. Like it was something that was on the air for like a season, never saw again. When I saw the TV show, I thought, that's isn't that like Legend of the Golden Monkey or whatever? And there wasn't an internet back then, so I couldn't like look it up and double check.
Mm.
But once I was able to do that, I was like, "Yep, I was right," because I'm a
How
complete nerd.
how the fuck have you never been on Jeopardy?
Because all of my knowledge is like television slash movies, and anything that I know outside of that is just enough to be dangerous. I wouldn't be able to. Like, I'm really good at Trivial Pursuit. I played Star Wars Trivial Pursuit myself against three other people. Like it was just me and their three brains trying to beat mine. And it was like I remember the winning question was how many rats were in the window of the Rancor pit, and I was like, well, three, and I'm like, fuck.
Have you seen the new Trivial Pursuit?
No.
It's fucking blasphemy.
Really? How?
It's the board is ridiculous. You just go around the outside and you collect pieces if you land on the right spot, but you can only go around the board twice without automatically getting a piece.
Yeah.
It's the millennial version of Trivial Pursuit.
Scribe, do you read? If so, do you have a favorite author?
He's illiterate.
The an author that I have read consistently. I generally don't target myself after authors so much, but an author I've read consistently was Harry Turtledove. Harry Turtledove's specialty is alternate history, and one of his first books was called The Guns of the South, and it was sort of a speculative thing saying, what if the South had AK-47s in the Civil War?
Oh,
There's a plot device that allows this to happen, but that's less consequential than Turtledove's sort of analysis of the times and the culture and the politics, and using this plot device of the South having an edge to sort of speculate on, well, if things had gone slightly differently, then what would have happened? And
now
Turtledove's crowning achievement, as far as I'm concerned at this point, was a series called World War. And what it speculated was that at the height of World War II, Earth is invaded by aliens. But they're not like cheesy 50 sci-fi aliens. They are realistic, sort of, so to speak. And his using that scenario to imagine what would happen if all of these very disparate, very separated regimes and nations all of a sudden had a common foe in the middle of their own giant conflict. What would that do? What would happen? And just seeing through this guy's mind the different ways and historical figures that he was able to bring to the fore that I'd never heard of before, but then got an idea about, even though they were, fictionalized, and seeing just how his mind worked and gaming out different scenarios. Just excellent, excellent books.
with that, I mean, the general premise there, what if they all had to come together? That's kind of what happened with the Allies.
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
But I had a question for you based on it. When you read, do you prefer nonfiction or fiction?
I generally prefer nonfiction. I read a lot of. I've read, I can't count how many books on serial killers and true crime and stuff like that.
I like true crime books.
Yeah,
but some of them
yeah.
My wife got one about this dude who's used to pick up young girls, take them back to his place with his girlfriend, and rape and then kill them. And that was the one I had to stop reading because it was just so brutal.
Like,
nope.
There was a book I read recently that was sort of like that. It was about Israel Keys, who was a serial killer that probably a lot of people haven't heard of because nobody knows how prolific he was.
Mm.
Israel Keys. So, just to give a very brief overview of this guy, he was in operation for something like 15, 20 years. He would travel using cash only from where he was in like Alaska. He would fly to Texas. He would rent a car. He would drive it to Virginia. He would then take a backpack full of murder tools, duct tape and knives and guns and stuff. He would bury it at some marked location, leave it there, come back 7 years later, and go and kill somebody.
That's dedication.
This guy was, I mean, I always thought that Zodiac was sort of my quote unquote favorite serial killer just for how supervillain he was.
Mm-hmm.
Israel Keys was a fucking mastermind. And he killed himself in prison before he could be put on trial. And he was just, but holy cats, this guy is, I mean, I read a book on him, and the problem is that nobody quite knows how much he did or what he did. They only know that he did a lot based on the information they do have. So there's a lot of people out there who are a victim of his, but nobody will ever know because he would plan these things decades in advance or something. It was nuts. But yeah, I like reading nonfiction because nonfiction is generally much more interesting, especially nonfiction about early American stuff. Like there's I should take it back. One of the other authors I love reading is a guy named Harold Schechter. Harold Schechter has a series of books chronicling murderers from like the early 1900s and like America's first serial killer, H. Holmes. This guy, man, he was also a supervillain. He was able to, in the middle of Chicago, commission and build this giant sort of hotel slash
I know who you're
commercial
talking about.
Yeah, and he what he would do is he'd have one work crew build part of the building, and then he'd fire them all because of incompetence or something and not pay them. Then he'd have another work crew build another part of the building, and neither group knew what the other one had been building. So he made this super duper evil castle of maze and trap doors and shit.
Yep.
And he would take somebody and lock them in a room and then fill it with gas until they suffocated. Then they take their body, put it into a chute that took it all the way down to the basement where he'd do experiments on the body. This guy was nuts. But I mean, and it's all true and it's all so antiquated and weird. It's like the American Jack the Ripper. Harold Schechter does a lot of really good books on old timey serial killers. So look him up too.
If you could write a book, what genre would it be?
H.P. Lovecraftian type horror stuff. I tried emulating H.P. Lovecraft at one point when I was younger. I was a big Lovecraft fan, and so I'd try to write in that sort of very formal style. I started writing a story. I finished a short story in that style. I started writing a longer one. I'm a short story guy. I've never, as much as I want to, I've never quite got the spark in my head to try to do like a really long form story. But I've done a lot of mostly, I guess you would classify it as fan fiction because it's mostly based around like other concepts and things. But yeah, so I'd do something creepy horror, I guess.
Mine would be either horror or mystery. I love both.
Yeah.
But for horror, it wouldn't be, gore. It would just, it would be more suspense horror.
Yeah.
I'm not a gore person.
Yeah, gore is easy in the sense that it's just sort of like shock value. To actually scare somebody with atmosphere and concept and just that stuff, that takes a skill.
Oh, hi, Carrie Ann. Yep,
Carrie Ann is here.
We're talking about books. Oh, now I feel bad. She's the only one we've actually shouted out.
Well, I've said other people's names, better read than dead, and
not because they arrived. We're bastards.
Well, I just looked up and she was there. I don't know how long she's been here. So,
well, she said she'd been missing it, so I'm guessing she just got here.
Oh, I see. Okay. Hitchcock.
See, this is what we get for not paying attention to chat.
Yeah, well, we're evil people. Actually, we should have like a dedicated chat moderator or something who's like tweeting us at the same time to let us know and wake us up.
Oh yeah.
Stuff. Have an official like questioner. I'm offended now. I'm sorry, Kyle, or this is Kyle. I'm sorry you're offended. But remember, offense is always taken, not given.
That's right. Hi, everybody. There we go. Covered everyone. Um, I had a thought and I lost it. I hate when that happens.
What did Carrie Ann distract you?
No, it was before that. It was way before we were on books even.
Mm.
Um, and I wanted to come back to it, and I really need to start writing shit like that down. Let's go back and see if we missed a question I want
Let's
to
see,
answer.
Wes Craven or John Carpenter. I appreciate John Carpenter a bit more than I do Wes Craven. John Carpenter at least was had some range. Wes Craven, like John Carpenter did Starman, and he did Escape from New York, and he
Mm,
did The Thing. I mean, these were all, I mean, with the exception of Starman. Starman was a relatively uplifting movie at the end, I guess. But
yeah.
yeah, it got Carpenter had some range in the subject matter in which he was dealing with. Wes Craven, for the most part, not that I don't like Wes Craven's films. I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one, to me, even though I think Monkey isn't the biggest fan, or no, you're a fan only because it's horrible to you because it scared you so much, right?
Yes, that was the first.
Right.
Nightmare was the first scary movie I ever saw, and it fucked me up
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
weeks.
Between, yeah, Last House on the Left, The Hills Have Eyes, Nightmare on Elm Street. Wes Craven is to be credited with a lot of stuff, but Carpenter had better range and vision, in my opinion.
I think Wes Craven, his less commercial stuff is really good. Like the original Nightmare, that was not a huge commercial success.
No,
That wasn't until
not at first. No.
three.
Yeah.
Um, so
Oh,
I think for pure scares, it was much better in the beginning.
Oh, politically incorrect grandpa. Scribe, I had a long conversation with Eileen Warnos. Now, a lot of people, it never made any sense to me when people called her like America's first female serial killer. I was like, no, there's, what was her name? Ann Toppin. I think her name was Toppin. And she was, there. Okay, in short, there have been numerous angels of death, like nurses that kill people in old folks' homes or poison people going back for centuries at this point. So Eileen Wuornos was the most tabloid advertised female serial killer to that point, but she was nowhere near the first one in America or otherwise.
Did you ever see the movie Town of the Bloody Sundown?
Do you mean the town that feared sundown?
Nope, nope, nope.
Town of the Bloody Sundown. That no.
It was I remember one scene from the movie, oh, two scenes from the movie. It's another movie that really fucked me up because I told you monsters don't really scare me because I don't believe in monsters. But this was supposedly based on a true story, and the guy was never caught. And I remember the end because he runs off into the swamp, and then it
You mean
pops
the
up.
town that dreaded sundown? That's what I meant. There's no such movie as Town of the Bloody Sundown. The town that dreaded sundown was based off of the Phantom Killer, which was a true story about someone that ran around and killed people back in, I think, Texas or the Old West or something at some point.
It wasn't the Old West.
1 second here. Let me look it up. The Town That Dreaded Sundown is a 1976 American slasher film. Let's see, where is it? The Phantom. The fictionalized version of real life Texas Ranger Captain M.T. Lone Wolf Gonzalez. The film is somewhat loosely based on actual crimes attributed to an unidentified serial killer known as the Phantom Killer. It claims that the incredible story you're about to see is true, where it happened, and how it happened. Only the names have been changed. The actual Phantom attacked 8 people between February 22nd, 46, and May 3rd, 46, in or near the town of Texarkana, Texas, which is on the Texas border with Arkansas.
Yep, that's the one.
Yeah, and the guy with the
That
big bag on his head.
that's the one that's fucked me up the most. That was
Mm-hmm.
long lasting because he was a real guy.
Right.
And there's one scene where he ties these two people to a tree, and he takes, what is it, a trombone, ties a knife to the end of it, and plays it as he's stabbing them to death.
Oh Jesus!
It's horrible. And yeah, that was that's one that fucked me up bad.
The old horror movie scene that probably, just for its sort of boring brutality, I guess, was just the scene where Leatherface hoists that guy up on the meat hook
Oh
and
yeah.
just hangs in there. And I mean, it's just such a simple act of absolute just like I said, brutality. It always creeps me out. I mean, everything in that movie, like when he hit that guy in the head with the hammer, it was all just so blunt and so unsexualized or anything. It wasn't fun violence. It was just, and
Yeah,
yeah, that movie is so good even today.
I can't take that kind of stuff because it's too close to gore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like the Hellraiser movies.
Oh yeah, we'll tear your soul apart.
I remember the one scene where the guy has all the fish hooks in him with the
Yep,
chains, and they just
yep.
pop him. No,
Jesus wept.
Jesus. Somebody asked if I'm going to watch the Red Pill. I might, if I see it on, it's not something I'm going to go out of my way to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's like preaching to the choir kind of thing.
Well, I have a problem with the whole pill metaphor.
Oh yeah, well,
it pisses me off because it's not about waking up. You need to learn. You don't get woke. You're not taking a fucking pill. You're learning.
Yeah. The Odd Couple or Quincy. I don't know. What's my favorite Jack Klugman vehicle? Oh.
I love the original Odd Couple, the play that was turned into a movie that was turned into the show.
Wasn't that Simon or what's his name who wrote that play?
Steinbeck.
Was the Odd Couple Steinbeck?
Wasn't it?
Or
was it? No, maybe it was Simon. Fuck, now I'm gonna feel bad about myself. The thespian within is ashamed.
Odd Couple, Neil Simon. Yeah,
Neil Simon. Okay. Yeah. That's another book that I own that used to be owned by my former high school. But yeah, I love the original Odd Couple. The play was awesome.
Spielberg or Kubrick? I have to go for Kubrick again.
Kubrick,
for range and just the depth of. I mean, from Paths to Glory to Full Metal Jacket to Shining, 2001. I mean, just it's like
I'm gonna get in trouble here. I don't think Spielberg is as great as he's made out to be.
Not anymore. His early stuff was really good.
Well, it depends on what you're talking about. I mean, he did some really bad shit too. People forget.
Yeah. When I think Spielberg, like good Spielberg, I think Duel, I think Jaws, I think Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
See, but even Jaws could have been better, in my opinion. I like Jaws, and Jaws for me is another one of those movies that when I saw it is why it impacted me.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first time I watched Jaws was the night before I went to the Atlantic Ocean for the first time.
Oh.
And it took me about 3 hours to convince myself I could go in the water.
Yeah.
But because of that, it does have a special place in my heart. But I've tried watching it again, and it is so slow. Slow.
Yeah, I mean the super. I mean, we have been ruined by these sort of fast cut action movies of, just the 80s up through to now. I mean, I think it was probably Die Hard that probably set the standard of what an action movie had to be at that point.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And
such a good movie too.
Yeah, and if you go back to, we were talking about this on the movie stream or whatever. It's like we were talking about how the golden age of films was probably, you said the 80s. I think it was the late 70s, early 80s, when a story could take time to build up and it was worth the wait, kind of thing. Now we're just been so conditioned into short attention spans and instant gratification that we need to have our explosion.
Well, I think you could still make a slow build-up movie, but Spielberg in that movie, there's so many scenes where it's just him like panning on people's faces, or it's one of my problems with Lord of the Rings. I appreciate them trying to make the Lord of the Rings movies longer and doing the full, 9 hours if you watch the theatrical cuts.
Yeah, my ex-girlfriend had these super duper cuts of all of them all. We sat down and watched them all the way through one weekend, and I just about died.
But there's so much of those movies that is just them showing scenery.
Yeah, it's just pretty pictures. I mean, stuff that obviously should have been left on the cutting room floor, and was, because that was for the pacing of it.
Well, I remember going to see. My wife loves 50 Shades of Grey, so when it came out, we went and fucking saw that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this long scene where they're flying in a helicopter, and you're just looking out over Seattle or wherever the fuck they are.
Mm-hmm.
And it was entirely unnecessary to the film. Yeah. It's just like 2 minutes of
filler.
Scenery.
Yeah, just filler.
It's I hate that shit. It's like in books. I cannot stand exposition just for the sake of exposition.
You know what? Two slow burn movies, at least, and I'm talking relatively recent. They're not like recent movies, but two slow burn movies I think of that are far outside sort of the classic era where that still made sense. Usual Suspects
Oh, so
and
good.
and Seven.
Seven. Yeah, when you started on that, I was gonna say seven.
Mm-hmm.
Seven is one that when I first watched it, until
Yeah.
you get to the end, I'm like, this sucks.
Yeah.
This is kind of dull. And now when I watch it, I am just anticipating that
Mm-hmm.
end.
Yeah. It's not a super commercial movie necessarily because of its violence and all that, but just the acting, the structure, the writing, that whole movie. It's one of those movies where it's like this kind of quality only comes around once every 10 years or something, and you're lucky if you find it.
Yeah,
You know,
that was
something
I
that
was
can
so impressed.
yeah, something that can transcend. I mean, we're talking about it now. It came out like what, 95 or something, 96.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you can still reference and be creeped out by a movie that is older than your children at this stage of the game,
Yeah.
you know it's made an impression, it's done something right, and especially when more people than not agree on it.
Carrie Ann, I saw 50 Shades because my wife wanted to, and I like to keep her happy.
If you want an actual book that has it's still fantasy, but it's a hell of a lot better than 50 Shades of Grey for that subject matter. Look up the Sleeping Beauty series by Anne Rice, or at least her pseudonym at the time she was writing them. The first book in the Sleeping Beauty series. If you want BDSM action, you can't get much better than that.
Have you read 50 Shades of Grey?
Fuck no.
It is one of the best books ever because it is so bad. My favorite line in that whole book is she's talking about how she was going to meet him for the first time, and she says that the elevator whisked her at oh geez, got I'm trying to think of the exact word. I know this.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, if you take it literally, it would have killed her. I think she says it free fall speed, which is like 122 miles an hour.
Yeah, right.
And if you step into trust me, if you read it as a comedy, 50 Shades of Grey is an excellent fucking book.
Carrie Ann said, Seven changed my answer to what's in the box forever. Actually, my first answer to what's in the box is nothing. Absolutely nothing. You're so stupid.
Oh my God.
Yeah, UHF, man. I mean, UHF predated Seven, and UHF was like that. That is another one of those things where it's like, God, Weird Al should make another movie, but Weird Al should never make another movie because UHF was perfect.
Conan the Librarian.
Yeah. Don't you know the Dewey Decimal System?
Well, you remember me telling you about Crazy People being one of my favorite movies?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I used to have a VHS that had UHF followed by Crazy People, and I would just throw it in every now and then and watch it.
Hello, my name is Philo, and today I'm going to teach you how to make plutonium with everyday household items.
Yes. Oh, that was such a great movie.
Oh, so good.
So good. But it's so bad. You can't watch. It's not exactly parody, but it's not exactly straight comedy either.
And it couldn't be made today. Another one of those things. It's just like the jokes in there and some of the stuff was just, it wouldn't be allowed. Hell, dropping the Chihuahua into the punch would have probably gotten PETA all up in arms.
Where the hell did you find a copy of Crazy People? I've been desperate to find that on DVD somewhere.
Is it out of print? Are they moratoriumed or something?
Well, I haven't looked in probably a year because I just finally gave up. So maybe it's been released. This is actually a good question because I'm curious about your musical taste. Somebody asked Oak Ridge Boys or Brooks and Dunn. Are you a country music fan at all?
So you can get a double feature, Best Defense and Crazy People on DVD on Amazon.com for, well, $32.22.
Oh, I'd be offended spending that much for Best Defense.
Or you can get Crazy People by itself on DVD for $23.
That'll be on my birthday list.
Okay, yeah. There's as far as I can tell, it's used in it's going to be through like secondary sources. Amazon, yeah, Amazon's got a double feature version directly on Prime for $32. But if you
with
want
Best
it just by
Defense,
itself,
that's just insulting.
yeah, I know. Well, it's a Dudley Moore double feature. What was the musical question?
Brooks and Dunn or the Oak Ridge Boys?
Alice in Chains and Tool.
Nice. I
Yeah.
would actually answer the Oak Ridge Boys because I grew up on that. My mom was a huge country music fan.
Yeah, I'm well, okay, if we're talking like classic, or well, I guess it's classic now, but Roy Orbison.
Oh yeah,
I love listening to Roy Orbison. His, if I remember correctly, he could hit 8 octaves with his voice, 8 different octaves depending on what he was doing. Just amazing, and just a brilliant artist. As far as like older music, there's a lot of stuff that my parents listen to on the radio that I have like a sentimental attachment to, but no like specific artists whose albums I own or something. I
that
didn't when I started collecting music when I was a teenager. I was getting like Jane's Addiction and Alice in Chains and Tool, and the only sort of non rock stuff that I liked as a kid that helped me sleep was Enya. The album Memory for Trees, that stuff will put me to sleep real quick. But otherwise, yeah, I had a lot of grunge-ish stuff at that time, and a lot of sort of dark things. And well, later came Dave Matthews and Ben Folds, but you know that was sort of a weird time in my life.
Dad liked really, really old country, like Hank Williams Sr., and he liked a lot of bluegrass, which is why I featured Carrie, because she reminded me of that.
The only good country song is "Thunder Rolls" by Garth Brooks. Murder ballad so all the way. Ones. I'm kidding.
What about
I'm kidding.
The Devil Went Down to Georgia? Come on.
Yeah, Devil. I was kidding. I'm kidding. There's plenty of good country music. I like murder ballads. There's a band that did covered a whole bunch of really old murder ballads like St. James Infirmary and John Henry and all this other stuff. A band called Snake Farm. You can find a couple of their songs on YouTube if you look up Snake Farm. Their version of House of the Rising Sun is really good. But yeah, that whole album is just awesome.
I don't really have a favorite genre of music. I just like so many different things. I love like old school rap, the original stuff back in the days with everybody knows Run DMC, but you got Big Daddy Kane and
what about the Fat Boys?
Oh, the Fat Boys, their movie, what was it? Disorderlies.
Disorderlies, yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, the Fat Boys. Have you seen them? Seen who? My nuts. Such a great song. But I love heavy metal, everything. So it's always hard for me to, when somebody goes, "What's your favorite kind of music?" All of
Depends on my mood. Depends on my mood.
I like as much music as I hate.
And I like a lot of modern stuff too. I like a lot of remixes and things I see now. And God, I could go on forever about some of the music I like.
CB4 was an excellent movie.
Oh Jesus, CB, fuck.
Oh, Sweat on My Balls, such a great song. Yeah, and a great parody of what was going on in rap at the time.
You know what? This just reminded me. So, do you remember a movie with Steven Dorff called SFW or So Fucking What?
I do not.
So, I think. Uh-oh.
Yep, I'm thinking I'm going to have to go.
Oh, okay. Well, tell you what, remind me about SFW next time we talk, because I think it might be relevant to things. Anyway, go take care of the baby.
The baby's waking up. She needs some comforting, so that's going to wrap it up. Thank you guys for coming. Scribe, thanks for hanging out.
Always.
I'll see you guys next time.